Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamu alaikum, dear students. I Engineer Shad Muhammad, lecturer at Department of Civil Engineering, Comsets University, Islamabad, Sahiwal campus. Welcome you all to this lecture number 29 of the subjects Mechanics of Solids 2. And we will be developing our previous concepts regarding failure theories. And in our previous lecture, recent lectures, we studied stress transformation in detail. We studied, let me recap that whole lecture series. We started our journey with classical engineering mechanics, and you are capable enough to calculate support reactions, and then you moved into mechanics of solids 1, in which you studied a few classical equations to calculate bending stresses, shear stresses, torsional stresses, and axial stresses or direct stresses. And even you also calculated the combination of those stresses. And at the start of mechanics of solids 2, we also discussed combined loading cases, in which stresses in biaxially or triaxially a member is loaded with different type of load combinations. And as you are aware that when your stresses are applied at different axes, then different type of stresses are originated, and you cannot decide on your failure of the material on just direct yield stress, or you can say tensile stress of the material, because now the condition has changed, and now your condition is your member is three-dimensional, and your loading conditions are also combined loading and applied on 3 dimensions. So for those reasons, we require to study stress transformation concept. And stress transformation concept states like this, that means you can calculate the resultant direct stresses and shear stresses on any plane inclined at any orientation theta. When you are capable enough of calculating, means how we did that, we considered a general body, and we considered that that general body is divided into finite elements. And those finite elements, we took a region in which we ensured that stresses will be uniform, and then we analyze that block and stress block. Okay, this stress block can be any, this is stated as stress at a point, because we are discussing at a point stress condition. Okay, this stress block is oriented at means that perpendicular to x-axis and y-axis, and later on we transformed that to different axes with the help of stress transformation formulas. Anyhow, we calculated the resultant and resultant axial stresses and resultant shear stresses, and these were our formulas for stress transformation equations. And with the help of these equations, we can calculate our transformed stresses along any axis and along any orientation theta. So these equations were helpful in those regards. So primarily your stress block was in perpendicular to x and y axis, and now your transformed stresses are in x dash and y dash positions. Then we later on studied that your stresses can also be means due to stresses in the uniaxial direction, or due to this stress transformation, you can also calculate the strain, and with the help of Poisson ratio you can calculate the strain in both dimensions x and y. Then we solved two example problems related to stress transformation equations, and so the basic effect on stress transformation equation was this, that the incorporation of theta. Let me show you this one. You will keep on changing the theta, and you will generate new values for your direct stresses and shear stresses. So we are not interested in all those points of 1 degree, 2 degree, 3 degree, 4 degree, 5 degree, 180 degree. We are only interested in those stresses which are maximum stresses. Okay, maximum stresses. So for calculating the maximum stresses, we derived few equations, and for that we brought into the concept of maximum and minimum stresses. So this was your general condition, that if your axis is transformed, then with each degree of transformation, your values of direct stresses and shear stresses will change. So at few points you can see like this, that this one you can see shear is maximum, and all other are average stresses. And here at 58.2 degree, you can see that direct stresses or axial stresses are maximum. Then we brought in the concept of maximum principal stresses. Principal stresses are maximum and minimum normal stresses. You can see over here that normal stresses are maximum and minimum. They are called principal stresses, and maximum shear stresses. And with the help of general mathematical equations, general method, you can calculate the maximum shear stresses and the plane at which the maximum shear stresses are oriented. Similarly, you can calculate the mean stresses, and we also discussed that if your stress block is having maximum shear stresses, then at each other perpendicular axis, direct stresses will be average or mean stresses. And then we later on calculated that with the help of when you know maximum shear stresses and when you know maximum mean stresses, and with the help of few equations, you can very easily calculate principal stresses. And I have told you before that principal stresses are both maximum normal stresses and minimum normal stresses. So stress maximum is equal to average mean stresses plus maximum shear stresses, and stress minimum is mean stresses minus raw max. Then we studied how you are going to plot and specify the orientation for those things. And this is your stress block, and we discussed this problem in detail in our previous lecture, and this problem too. Then we later on moved to Mohr circle, and Mohr circle was interesting in this fact that you can replicate your answers of classical equation method with the help of Mohr circle. And this is an alternative to your calculation of maximum shear stresses, principal stresses calculation, and the plane and orientation of transform stresses, and plane and orientation of principal stresses and shear stresses. So for constructing Mohr circle, two things were required: maximum shear stresses and mean stresses. How we do it, and we derive the equations, and first we constructed y-axis and x-axis or Cartesian coordinate system, and we replaced your Cartesian coordinates x with direct stresses or normal stresses, and y with shear stresses. And we decided that shear will be negative above the normal axis, and shear will be positive below the normal normal axis, normal shear stresses axis. And we also studied that your stresses in x direction, stresses rightwards toward from the center of the circle will be positive, and the stresses leftwards will be negative in case of normal stresses in x direction, and your stresses in y direction will be positive if that is above the x-axis, and stresses in y direction will be negative if that is below the stresses are located. Stresses in y direction are located below the normal axial stresses in x direction. Okay, and we first located the point of center, and center coordinates are will always be mean stresses, and shear stresses will be zero at mean stresses. Okay, you will plot this one, and then you will locate the points of the stress block, which we have plotted like this one, this BC, and then you are working within the Mohr circle. And we also studied that when you are working within the Mohr circle, and we also studied that when you are working within the Mohr circle, your angles are double angles, and when you move away from the Mohr circle, then your angles are single angles. Okay, so you can see that this is your original stress block, and this is your maximum shear stresses, and the radius of the circle will be maximum shear stresses. So shear maximum is at G dash and F dash, and you can plot it very easily. Shear stresses maximum. Okay, if you are plotting this same stress block over here, then it should be negative maximum and mean stresses, and in other directions. Similarly, maximum that principal stresses, you can calculate maximum principal stresses and minimum principal stresses. Then we solved few problems related to this Mohr circle. Alright, today we will be discussing failure criteria. Failure criteria is very essential concept when you are analyzing your material strength, and you are analyzing and designing your materials or members. Okay, the major purpose of looking at stresses on different planes is to determine when a stress state produces failure. So different stress state means numerous stress states are possible, and combination of those stress states are possible, but we are interested in failure, those stress states which are responsible for failure, producing failure. Failure of materials is complex. Okay, and solid understanding involves knowledge of both material sciences and mechanics. So material sciences is also required, and mechanics is also required, and nowadays material sciences have increased, that knowledge base have material sciences have developed so much that now bachelors of material engineering is also offered in different universities of Pakistan. Okay, and mechanical formulas are also required. Material scientists would be most concerned, for example, with how the microstructure or the processing effect of the stress at which a material yields plastically or fails. So material engineers, mostly material scientists, study the microstructure of materials under different loadings. Okay, and they try to enhance it and improve it. Okay. However, the material scientists generally consider yield and failure only in uniaxial tension. So they are mostly interested in uniaxial tensions, and actually the test capacity are only in uniaxial directions. Let's say that the critical stresses for failure in uniaxial tension is known from measurements of the material. Okay, critical stresses in uniaxial tension with the help of universal testing machine or mechanical testing machine, whatever name you call it, you have tested in your mechanics of solids 1 laboratory that how you are going to calculate the yield stress or fracture stress of the material when it is under loading in universal testing machine. Okay, you have derived that thing. Okay, mechanics of materials and stress transformation in particular are needed to determine the combination of normal and shear stresses at which failure in the same material would occur. So mechanics of material and stress transformation in particular. So mechanics of solids is required, and stress transformation, specific stress transformation concept in the mechanics of solids is required to determine the combination of normal and shear stresses. Without stress transformation equations, you are unable to calculate the combined loading failure criteria. Okay, all right. Model failure in a simple approximate way as being either ductile or brittle, and note their respective dependence on shear and normal stresses. Very simple. What you are going to do is this, that first you have to categorize either your material is ductile or brittle based on few fat fundamental principles. In judging failure for combination of stresses, we simplify significantly actual observation of failure. In this simplest view, failure occurs in one of the two general forms, depends on the stresses as follows. So materials on the basis of failure can be categorized into two general categories: ductile materials and brittle materials. Ductile materials and brittle materials. Ductile materials fail due to shear stresses, and brittle material fail due to axial or direct stresses. Material exhibits significant plastic flow before finally breaking or breaking. So plastic flow is directly related to your yield strength and yield point. So microscopic mechanism, deformation by motion of atomistic defects. So at atom level there are slipping and some readjustments of atoms occur, and that's why yield point is defined as readjustments of the atom, and there is a slippage of atoms in between, so there is no increase in stress in case of mild steel when you conduct a uniaxial tension test of mild steel. Mild steel is a ductile material. Remember, high strength steels are brittle materials. Wrought irons are also ductile materials. Alright. Dependence on stress. Ductile failure depends on shear stresses. Shear stresses allow plasticity and deformation. Simple. Plasticity is different thing than deformation. They are deformation is a general category, and plasticity is one of the subcategory, and let me not go deeper into that, but you should be knowing that ductile materials fail due to plasticity, and plastic elements do fail due to shear stresses. And second thing, that plastic elements do allow yielding. Okay, brittle material are opposed to the ductile materials, and materials break with no evidence of plastic deformation. So when you carry out the forensic analysis of the failure or failure forensics, and you come to know that the material exhibits no failure symptoms, although that glass will be broken into different pieces, but there will be no symptom of yielding. So such materials are categorized and should be categorized as ductile material. Malleable, they are not malleable. They cannot deform. They do not twist. They fracture. Okay, micromechanism, opening up and propagation of small cracks. This is interesting. Micromechanisms. In ductile materials, microstructure, I should be calling that microstructure. Microstructure allows slipping of the atoms. However, brittle materials do not allow slipping of the atoms, and small cracks propagate. Small cracks starts to open up. Okay, tearing. Dependence on stresses. Brittle failure depends on normal stresses. Brittle materials fail due to normal stresses. So two things, that ductile materials fail due to shear stresses, brittle material fail due to normal stresses. Okay. Recall that at any point the maximum normal and shear stresses can act on inclined planes. We were aware that uniaxial test is not enough. Simply stating uniaxial test is not enough. We have to incorporate stress transformation concepts at different orientations. So at different orientations you will get a different magnitude of stresses, and we calculated the maximum principal stresses and maximum shear stresses. We have learned that the same stress state will have different stresses acting on surfaces of different orientations. So this is your general orientation, and for a given stress, as described as, this is the given state of stress X. This notation can be explained as stress in X direction. Stresses on X phase due to X stresses in X direction, and this is stresses on Y phase due to stresses in Y direction. And tau xy is can be explained as shear stresses acting on plane X, and the shear stress for given, okay, we have studied this thing, and the shear stresses is maximum on the surface of one orientation and normal stresses is maximum on the other orientation. We have gone through these concepts, and we have calculated that at one plane shear stresses will be maximum, at another plane normal stresses will be maximum. So let's look into this. If your shear stresses are maximum, then in other on other faces your direct stresses will be average, mean. This is not minimum, this is mean. By mean we are saying average stresses. Secondly, if at some orientation your stresses will be principal stresses, and we have discussed principal stresses as they are maximum axial stresses and minimum axial stresses, okay, or maximum direct stresses and minimum direct stresses. All right. Due to normal stresses and shear stresses of a given magnitude have that same tendency to cause failure regardless of the plane on which it acts. So normal stresses and shear stresses both have the capacity to fail the material, and regardless of the plane on which it acts. Approximate the materials as isotropic. Isotropic are those materials who have iso and tropic, who have same material properties in different directions. What I meant by material properties? Yes. Okay, that's right. Material properties include modulus of elasticity. Material properties include Poisson ratio. All right. Material property do not include geometry. They are geometric properties. The shape, that is geometric property. So there are two categories: material property and geometric properties. So we approximate the material as isotropic. We consider that your material is isotropic, and many times that structural means concrete and steel is considered as isotropic. Namely, a normal or shear stresses has same effect regardless of the plane on which it acts. Okay. So we consider that we assume that normal stresses in x direction will have same effect of the normal stresses in y direction if under loading condition, same loading condition. Okay. Similarly, the shear stresses in x direction will have same shear stresses magnitude in y direction. Got my point? This is the feature or feasibility that isotropic properties allow. Most engineering materials are approximately isotropic. This is important, approximately. This is an estimation. This is not mathematics. Exact, not. Approximately all engineering materials are considered as isotropic. Isotropic materials are those materials who have same material properties in different directions. In x direction, Poisson ratio and modulus of elasticity are same. In y direction, Poisson ratio and modulus of elasticity and yield strengths are same. So similar properties are in every direction. Had we not assumed this assumption, then our calculation for the failure criteria would have been very, very complex. Very heavy mathematics we had to solve in order to see the real picture of the material and material failure. Okay. All directions in an isotropic material are same. Okay, all directions in isotropic material are same. Directions, what it meant by directions? All directions. A normal stress and shear stress will have same effect, including the tendency to cause failure regardless of the plane on which it acts. So all these normal stresses and shear stresses, if they are applied on different planes, they will have same effect regardless of the plane orientation, direction in which those are applied. Alright, anisotropic. Anisotropic. An means not isotropic. Not isotropic. Anisotropic materials respond differently depending on the plane on which the stresses act. If modulus of elasticity is more in x direction and less in y direction, then they are anisotropic material and their mechanics will be different. Anisotropic materials such as fiber reinforced composites and wood sometimes require more complex failure criteria. There is a lot of science in fiber mechanics and fiber reinforced concrete structures, and this is the modern concept incorporated in your concrete technology subjects. The concept is this, that your concrete is weaker in tension and strong in compression. Your tension of the concrete members are 10 times lesser as compared to compression capacities. So to enhance, researchers are continuously involved in enhancement in tension of the concrete members. For that, they first used macro level reinforcement, then micro level reinforcement, and fiber reinforcement, and first macro level steel reinforcement, then micro level fiber reinforcement, and now they have gone to nano level nanotubes reinforcements, just in order to enhance its mechanical performance. Mechanical performance is a huge term. Alright, so you should be having some vision regarding the modern technologies. You can Google it, you can YouTube it, and you will find some fascinating research areas, and you'll be fascinated to know that concrete is now like a specimen. Concrete is treated like an individual who is ill and who wants a cure, and being a scientist you prescribe the formula for the removal of that defect, or for the cure of that ailment. Got my point? So you being a mixed designer, you have to consider those enhancements. All right. This is not anisotropic. For an isotropic material that fails in a ductile fashion, predict failure to occur if the maximum shear stress exceeds a critical criteria. Now a specific criteria we are studying, the shear failure criteria. How your ductile material will fail. Your ductile material will fail due to shear capacities. Okay. You might be remembering that once I asked you question that why yield point is too much important in your universal testing machine tests. Why reinforced concrete design, all those principles and failures are decided on yield point? Because they are ductile materials. They are considered as ductile materials. Okay. Now, with more elaboration, you will come to know that yield point is too much important. For ductile materials, we often consider failure to correspond to first yield. So, ductile materials first yield point is important. There are two yield points. First yielding point and second yielding point. Okay, that is the part is not reusable if that has yielded. So when your material have yielded, so you have gone into plastic region, and now your material is not reversible. Okay, that is not elastic anymore. When a ductile material is tested in tension, we measure the tensile yield strength, stress Y. Okay, yield point, stress Y. Do not confuse the yield strength of the material, stress Y, big Y, with the stress Y, small y. So this is your normal stress in Y direction, but this is your yield stress. Okay, which is the normal stress acting in Y direction. What then is the shear strength of tau Y? Okay, what is the tau Y? This is normal stress, sigma Y, yield stress, and what is the shear yields. Okay. Measure stress to cause yield in uniaxial tension. So this is uniaxial direction loading, and you can see that we have discussed that for maximum shear element, constructing maximum shear element, your axial stresses will be this mean stresses, and shear stresses will be the maximum shear stress. And how are you going to calculate the maximum shear stress? Let's see. Under uniaxial tension, uniaxial, this is uniaxial test. Remember, the maximum shear stress is sigma divided by 2, because in other direction there is no axial stresses. So if a ductile material yields in uniaxial tension when stress is equal to stress yield, then shear yielding is equal to stress y divided by 2. Okay. We take yield to occur whenever the maximum shear stress reach yield divided by 2, regardless of the particular combination of the stresses. Got it. For general stresses, stress x, stress y, tau xy, using this criteria for maximum shear stresses in the plane, we predict failure yield to occur when tau max is equal to yield half of the yield stress. So we will show this in next section, and yield can sometimes occur even before above condition is reached if we consider maximum shear stress on the 3D plane. Okay, that was for ductile materials. If your maximum shear stress exceeds this point, then your material will fail. Regardless of any combination of the loadings. For a material that fails in a brittle fashion, predict failure to occur if the maximum tensile stress exceeds a critical value. For a material that fails in brittle fashion, predict failure to occur if the maximum tensile stress exceeds a critical value. When a material is tested in tension, we measure the tensile failure strength. What is maximum normal stress at failure? Okay, measure stress to cause brittle fracture. You can see that stress strain curve of the brittle material, a point will come and directly it will fracture. So this your fracture point is the failure criteria, and this is your specimen, and this is your maximum stresses, principal stresses. Okay, no shear stresses at all. So under uniaxial tension, the maximum normal stress is equal to sigma. If brittle fracture occurs, here fracture occurs, there yielding occurred. Okay, yielding. We want our structures to yield rather than fracture. We do not want brittle failure of our structures or members. Okay. Okay. So if the brittle failure occurs, then we take the brittle, your stress maximum will reach to fracture stresses regardless of the points of combination. So for general stress, using the criteria of maximum shear stresses, your maximum principal stresses should, if exceeds fracture stresses, then your material will be considered as failed. So this was your concept regarding failure criteria for brittle materials and failure criteria for ductile materials. Okay, so that was it for today's lecture, and In upcoming lectures we will be solving few problems, and see you in next lecture. Thank you. Assalamu alaikum.